Behind the Magic, Dick Van Dyke, opens up about the untold story of Mary Poppins and his unlikely journey to stardom tonight. We uncover the untold secrets of one of Disney's most beloved classics, Mary Poppins. While the iconic songs, whimsical characters, and magical moments are forever etched in our memories, the real story behind the scenes tells a much more complex tale. As we celebrate the 60th anniversary of this timeless film, Dick Van Dyke, one of its shining stars, reveals shocking details that offer a glimpse into the drama and personal sacrifices that shaped the making of the film. For fans who think they know every aspect of Mary Poppins, prepare to be surprised. Dick Van Dyke's journey to stardom began in West Plains, Missouri on December 13, 1925. But even his birth was surrounded by intrigue. For years, Van Dyke was led to believe that he was born in 1926. At 18, he learned the startling truth. His parents had altered his birth year to cover up a premarital pregnancy, an issue that was scandalous for a small-town family in the 1920s. This revelation, hidden for nearly 2 decades, left an indelible mark on Van Dyke, shaping the man he would become. The family relocated to Danville, Illinois, where Van Dyke would spend much of his childhood in a small town that later became a hotbed for future talent. His high school classmates included Donald O'Connor, the legendary dancer from Singin' in the Rain, and jazz virtuoso Bobby Short. Even more surprising, one of his close friends was the cousin of none other than Gene Hackman. However, at that point, Van Dyke had no aspirations of entering the entertainment world. Deeply religious, he even considered becoming a Presbyterian minister. He taught Sunday school and served as a deacon at his local church, living a life of faith that was worlds away from the showbiz future that awaited him. Everything changed when he joined the high school drama club, a decision that ultimately set him on a path of unexpected fame. From there, Van Dyke's destiny as an entertainer began to unfold, albeit in a way he could never have predicted. During World War II, Van Dyke felt the call to serve his country. In 1944, he left high school behind and attempted to join the U.S. Army Air Forces. However, at 6 feet 1 inch and weighing just 135 pounds, he was repeatedly rejected for being underweight. Determined not to be turned away, Van Dyke famously resorted to stuffing himself with bananas and water in a bid to meet the minimum weight requirement. After several attempts, he barely made the cut and was accepted into the Air Force. His military career, however, took an unexpected turn. Though he had initially trained as a radio announcer, Van Dyke narrowly avoided being assigned to a tail gunner position, one of the most dangerous roles in the military. Instead, he showcased his musical talents, performing for the troops as part of the Special Services, a role that allowed him to hone his comedic timing and entertainment skills without ever seeing combat. After the war, Van Dyke's entry into the entertainment industry seemed almost inevitable. He began working as a radio DJ at WDAN in Danville, where his smooth voice and quick wit began to earn him recognition. But it was his partnership with Phil Erickson that truly launched his career. Together, they made waves in the entertainment world, and soon Van Dyke was poised for stardom in Hollywood. But it wasn't until Mary Poppins came along that the world would come to know the full extent of Van Dyke's charisma and charm. As Bert, the lovable chimney sweep, Van Dyke's infectious energy and comedic genius shone through, making him a perfect complement to Julie Andrews' perfectly poised Mary Poppins. Yet behind the scenes, the making of the film was far from the magical experience it appeared to be. Van Dyke opens up about the tensions and challenges he faced on set, the sacrifices he made to perfect his performance, and the drama that unfolded behind the scenes, all of which shaped the final product we've come to cherish. Nearly 6 decades later, Dick Van Dyke's story continues to inspire, reminding us that even the most magical stories come with their own share of hardship, perseverance, and unexpected twists. Dick Van Dyke's early years, from mime acts to TV stardom and iconic blunders. Dick Van Dyke's rise to fame wasn't a traditional journey to the top, but rather one paved with quirky performances, fortuitous encounters, and, of course, some unforgettable mishaps. Before becoming a household name and a beloved star of Mary Poppins, Van Dyke's career began as part of a comedy duo called Eric and Van the Merry Mutes. Alongside his partner, Eric, Van Dyke performed mime and lip-syncing acts to records, touring the nightclub circuit along the West Coast. Later, the duo took their act to television, hosting a local show in Atlanta, where their success allowed Van Dyke to hone the physical comedy and impeccable timing that would become his trademark. Van Dyke's natural talent quickly caught the attention of television audiences. In 1954, he made his first major television appearance on the talent show Chance of a Lifetime, a moment that would forever change his trajectory. But the road to that big break almost didn't happen. Before taking the stage, Van Dyke was overcome with stage fright and hid in a bathroom stall, nearly missing his opportunity. It took the encouragement of a fellow contestant and a quick swig from a flask to calm his nerves and get him back on track. Once on stage, he performed a skit involving a microphone cord that got tangled around him as he tried to sing. The audience responded with raucous laughter, captivated by his combination of physical comedy and charm, which would go on to define his career. The success of that performance led to more opportunities, and soon Van Dyke found himself in the spotlight, making guest appearances on popular television shows. This momentum eventually led to an exciting and unexpected opportunity in 1955 when Van Dyke was offered the hosting job for CBS's The Morning Show. The offer came through an unusual connection. Byron Paul, a director at CBS, had met Van Dyke during their time in the Air Force. Hosting live television was a steep learning curve for Van Dyke, but he took to it with ease, turning accidents into moments of humor. Perhaps the most memorable of these moments occurred on his third day as host, when he tripped over a cable during a live broadcast, sending studio lights crashing around him. Rather than panicking, Van Dyke quickly turned the accident into an improvised comedy routine, making everyone in the studio, along with viewers at home, burst into laughter. This ability to stay calm under pressure and turn mistakes into comedic gold became one of his defining traits. Van Dyke's charm extended beyond hosting duties, and in 1957, he joined the panel of the popular game show To Tell the Truth. His quick wit and likability made him a favorite among audiences, but his time on the show wasn't without controversy. In one instance, Van Dyke correctly identified a contestant pretending to be a CIA agent, which led to accusations that the show was rigged. The controversy sparked enough concern for CBS to issue a public defense of Van Dyke and the show. Despite the drama, his charm and authenticity continued to win over fans, further cementing his place in television history. Van Dyke's transition from hosting to acting came in 1957, when he made a guest appearance on The Phil Silvers Show. This was just the beginning of his acting career, which would ultimately lead to his role in Mary Poppins and many other iconic performances. Van Dyke's journey from the small stage to television and eventually Hollywood was marked by his unique blend of physical comedy, quick wit, and the ability to make any situation laugh out loud funny, even when things went terribly wrong. Dick Van Dyke's Broadway breakthrough, from nervous beginnings to Tony glory. Dick Van Dyke's journey to Broadway stardom wasn't exactly a smooth, well-planned path. In fact, it was a series of unexpected opportunities and lucky breaks that propelled him into the spotlight. His early career was filled with moments of doubt, but each challenge only sharpened his comedic instincts and versatility, setting the stage for his eventual success. Van Dyke's introduction to Broadway came in 1959 with the short-lived musical The Girls Against the Boys. Despite closing after just 16 performances, this experience proved crucial for Van Dyke, catching the attention of the legendary choreographer Gower Champion. Champion would later become the key figure in Van Dyke's big break. While The Girls Against the Boys was a failure, the production was a turning point for Van Dyke's career. His work on the show led him to audition for a role in the upcoming Broadway musical Bye Bye Birdie. Van Dyke was nervous about this next step, and to make matters worse, he was cast in a small part. However, when he performed his audition piece, he surprised everyone, including himself. With no formal dance training to speak of, Van Dyke spontaneously broke into an impromptu soft shoe routine. His natural energy, humor, and presence impressed Champion, who stunned Van Dyke by offering him the lead role of Albert Peterson on the spot. Overwhelmed and hesitant, Van Dyke protested, admitting he couldn't dance. But Champion, ever the believer in Van Dyke's potential, reassured him with a simple but crucial line: "We'll teach you." This moment of faith would prove pivotal, not just for Van Dyke, but for the entire production. When Bye Bye Birdie opened on April 14, 1960 at the Martinbeck Theater, it was an instant hit. Inspired by the real-life drama surrounding Elvis Presley's draft into the Army, the show blended humor and heart, with Van Dyke's performance as Albert Peterson stealing the spotlight. He portrayed the bumbling, lovable Albert with such charm and comedic timing that what could have been a forgettable role became one of Broadway's most memorable. His ability to infuse emotional depth into the character added another layer to his performance, earning him rave reviews from both audiences and critics. At the 1961 Tony Awards, just a year after his Broadway debut, Van Dyke's breakthrough performance was officially recognized. He won the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical, a moment that not only celebrated his remarkable transformation from a nervous newcomer to a Broadway star, but also cemented his place in theater history. Van Dyke's success in Bye Bye Birdie was a testament to his resilience and his ability to turn every setback into an opportunity. Whether overcoming stage fright, improvising in the face of live mishaps, or proving that even someone with no formal dance training could take the lead on Broadway, Van Dyke showed that with a little bit of faith, talent, and perseverance, anything is possible. Dick Van Dyke's Hollywood breakthrough from Broadway to TV stardom. In 1961, Bye Bye Birdie was a Broadway sensation, winning 4 Tony Awards, including Best Musical. For Dick Van Dyke, the success of the show catapulted him into the national spotlight, drawing the attention of Hollywood. Just 2 years later, Columbia Pictures adapted Bye Bye Birdie into a film, with Van Dyke reprising his iconic role as Albert Peterson. However, the transition from stage to screen was not without its challenges. The film's shift in focus towards the character of Kim McAfee, played by Anne Margaret, sidelined Van Dyke's role in favor of appealing to a younger audience. This change frustrated Van Dyke, who felt the film had lost some of the heart and charm that made the stage production so beloved. Despite his reservations, Van Dyke's performance was still praised, with critics noting his remarkable versatility. Variety highlighted his ability to showcase a broader range of skills than his television appearances had previously suggested. Financially, the film was a success, grossing over $13 million and bringing Bye Bye Birdie to a much wider audience. This period marked a crucial transformation in Van Dyke's career. In just 3 short years, he had gone from an unknown Broadway actor to a Tony-winning star and a leading man in Hollywood. But even more success was on the horizon for Van Dyke, this time in the world of television. The story of the Dick Van Dyke Show is one of reinvention and serendipity. The show's origins can be traced back to a failed pilot called Head of the Family, created by Carl Reiner in 1960. The original pilot, based on Reiner's experiences as a comedy writer, was rejected by the network for not quite hitting the mark. That's when producer Sheldon Leonard had a bold idea. "Let's get a better actor to play you." The suggestion led to the complete reimagining of the show and the search for a new lead. At the time, Van Dyke was starring in Bye Bye Birdie on Broadway, and Hollywood had yet to recognize his potential. However, Reiner, who attended one of Van Dyke's performances, was immediately impressed by the actor's impeccable physical comedy and timing. Reiner knew that Van Dyke was the perfect person to bring the character of Rob Petrie to life. As Van Dyke later joked, naming the show after him wasn't about star power. It was a simple, practical choice. Nobody asked if anyone had heard of Dick Van Dyke, they just needed a name for the show. The collaboration between Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke created television magic. Reiner's sharp, witty scripts were the perfect complement to Van Dyke's vaudevillian charm and relatable everyman appeal. Together, they crafted a character that was both relatable and lovable, capturing the hearts of audiences. Van Dyke's natural chemistry with co-stars Rose Marie and Maury Amsterdam further elevated the show's brilliance. Van Dyke credited the two for setting the rhythm of the comedy, saying, "You just rode on top of that rhythm." The Dick Van Dyke Show premiered in 1961 and quickly became one of the most beloved sitcoms of all time, solidifying Van Dyke's place as a TV legend. The show's success not only reaffirmed his comedic genius, but also proved that a Broadway star could seamlessly transition to the small screen, further expanding his already impressive career. The groundbreaking legacy of the Dick Van Dyke Show and Van Dyke's Mary Poppins journey. When the Dick Van Dyke Show debuted, it instantly set a new standard for television comedy. The show's unique blend of workplace humor and family life created a dynamic that was rarely seen in sitcoms at the time. Instead of relying on the tired trope of the bumbling husband and the sharp-witted wife, the show portrayed Rob and Laura Petrie as equals in their marriage, both capable of humor, mistakes, and heartfelt moments. Their relationship felt fresh, modern, and authentic, resonating with viewers of all ages. The show's dual focus on Rob's work as a comedy writer and his home life with Laura allowed for a rich variety of storylines and deeper character development. It wasn't just about jokes. The Dick Van Dyke Show made viewers care about its characters, and it provided a window into the real dynamics of relationships, making it ahead of its time. The show also pushed creative boundaries, incorporating experimental techniques that were groundbreaking for sitcoms in the early 1960s. Flashbacks, dream sequences, and even surreal moments, such as the talking fish in The Night the Roof Fell In, were all part of the show's inventive storytelling style. One of its most iconic features, the opening sequence where Rob Petrie trips over an ottoman, was a last-minute idea, shot in a single take. It became one of the show's trademarks, and viewers eagerly anticipated whether Rob would trip or avoid the ottoman in each episode. Despite the show's eventual success, the first season was a struggle. It came close to cancellation, but found its footing by the second season. The show went on to become a critical and commercial hit, winning 15 Emmy Awards, including 3 for Outstanding Comedy Series. Its influence on television writing was immense. Carl Reiner's approach of asking, "What happened at your house this week?" inspired writers to draw from real-life experiences, a practice that would become standard in sitcom writing. The show also launched the careers of both Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore, who would go on to become television legends in their own right. Its sophisticated writing, timeless humor, and groundbreaking portrayal of marriage and family life made the Dick Van Dyke Show one of the most beloved and influential sitcoms in television history. In 2013, the Writers Guild of America ranked it number 14 on its list of the 101 best-written TV series of all time, cementing its legacy as one of the greatest achievements in television history. Moving from television success to film, Dick Van Dyke's journey in Mary Poppins was filled with passion, humor, and a surprising amount of struggle, both on and off screen. Van Dyke's casting as Bert, the cheerful chimney sweep, seemed like a natural fit, but his determination to land the role of Mr. Dawes Sr., the elderly bank director, is a testament to his commitment to his craft. Initially, Walt Disney was skeptical of Van Dyke for the role, but Van Dyke was undeterred. He was so determined to play the character that he offered to do it for free. To prove his commitment, He designed his own makeup and performed a screen test, which impressed Disney enough to offer him the role. However, there was a catch. Disney insisted that Van Dyke donate $4,000 to the newly created California Institute of the Arts. Reflecting on this unusual arrangement, Van Dyke later joked that it was his payback for getting the role, but it was also a testament to his dedication and the lengths he was willing to go to bring his characters to life. From groundbreaking sitcoms to classic films, Dick Van Dyke's career is a shining example of versatility, talent, and an unwavering commitment to the craft of entertainment. His work continues to inspire audiences and creators alike, and his legacy in both television and film is cemented for generations to come. Dick Van Dyke's iconic role in Mary Poppins and the personal struggles behind the magic. Dick Van Dyke's portrayal of Bert in Mary Poppins is one of the most beloved performances in film history. Yet the journey to bringing the character to life was not without its challenges, both on and off the screen. Van Dyke himself admitted that his Cockney accent, which became infamous, was far from perfect. The blame was partly placed on his dialect coach, J. Pat O'Malley, an Irishman who was not particularly adept at teaching a Cockney accent. As a result, Van Dyke's attempt came across as more of a caricature than an authentic representation. In fact, his accent ranked second in a 2003 poll of the worst accents in film history. Despite the criticism, Van Dyke maintained a sense of humor about the mishap. When he made a cameo in Mary Poppins Returns as Mr. Dawes Jr., he worked closely with a language coach to ensure his accent was more polished, joking, "They won't laugh at me this time." Van Dyke's ability to laugh at himself and his continued efforts to improve only added to his charm. Behind the scenes, Van Dyke shared a special dynamic with his co-star, Julie Andrews. While Andrews was already a seasoned star, confident and poised, Van Dyke often felt out of his depth. In particular, he struggled to match Andrews's vocal precision during the film's musical recordings. Van Dyke humorously described the challenge, explaining how her soprano voice was slightly sharp while his was naturally flat. He likened it to trying to climb a mountain. Despite his self-doubt, he credited Andrews for her patience and encouragement, which helped him rise to the challenge. The film's innovative special effects also presented unique obstacles. Van Dyke had to dance alongside animated penguins, requiring impeccable timing and coordination. Animators often guided him to ensure his movements matched the animated sequences, adding a layer of complexity to the already demanding production. However, it wasn't just the technical challenges that plagued Van Dyke during filming. He was also quietly battling personal demons. At the time, he was struggling with alcoholism, which he used as a coping mechanism to combat his shyness. He later confessed that drinking helped him feel more social and relaxed, but it came at a significant cost. Van Dyke openly admitted that his reliance on alcohol led to moments of deep depression and despair. "I was in deep trouble," he revealed, acknowledging the emotional toll the addiction had taken on him. Meanwhile, the film was facing its own challenges behind the scenes. P.L. Travers, the author of the Mary Poppins books, famously disliked Disney's adaptation of her work. She particularly resented the portrayal of Mary Poppins as sweet and kind, as she had envisioned the character as stern and commanding. Travers's dissatisfaction was so intense that, at the film's premiere, she reportedly shed tears, not of joy, but of dismay. She even demanded that the animation sequence be removed, to which Walt Disney famously responded, "Pamela, that ship has sailed." Travers's objections underscored the tension between her vision and Disney's more whimsical approach, creating an ongoing rift that would persist for years. Despite these challenges, Mary Poppins became a groundbreaking success, and Van Dyke's role as Bert remains a key highlight of the film. The film's triumph, however, was a bittersweet victory for Van Dyke, who was quietly grappling with his personal struggles. His performance, filled with charm and heart, stands as a testament to his resilience, perseverance, and dedication to his craft, even when the odds were stacked against him. Dick Van Dyke, a legacy of laughter, love, and endurance. Despite the intense personal struggles he faced during his early career, including battling alcoholism and even experiencing suicidal thoughts, Dick Van Dyke's professionalism on set remained unwavering. His energy, charm, and flawless execution of complex dance routines often masked the pain he was feeling inside. It's a testament to his dedication and commitment to his craft that despite these dark moments, he continued to captivate audiences with his infectious positivity and remarkable performances. Now, at 98 years old, Dick Van Dyke remains a beloved cultural icon, and his charm and talent are as timeless as ever. In a surprising revelation during a December 2023 interview, he shared that he is receiving more fan mail now than he did during his peak years. What makes this even more special is that much of this fan mail comes from children who have fallen in love with his family classics, like Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. "I'm getting letters from little kids," he shared, noting that they watch the movies over and over. This new wave of admiration highlights the enduring legacy of his work and how it continues to resonate with new generations of fans, even decades after it was first released. Despite his age, Van Dyke has not slowed down professionally. In 2024, he made history twice. First, he became the oldest actor to win a Daytime Emmy for his guest role on Days of Our Lives, an incredible achievement 60 years after winning his first Emmy for The Dick Van Dyke Show. Later in the year, he tied the record for the oldest winner of a Primetime Emmy for his variety special, Dick Van Dyke, 98 Years of Magic. These achievements not only showcase his enduring talent, but also his ability to adapt and remain relevant in an ever-evolving industry. However, his recent public appearances have sparked some concern among fans. In September 2024, Van Dyke canceled his planned appearance at the FanX Salt Lake Comic Convention. Organizers explained that at nearly 99 years old, traveling and interacting with large crowds had become more than he could manage. Around the same time, he also missed the 2024 Emmy Awards, where he had been scheduled to present. These absences raised concerns among fans, but true to his spirit, Van Dyke didn't lose his sense of humor. When spotted in Malibu shortly after, he jokingly remarked, "I feel old," but added that he hoped to make it to his 99th birthday in December. His resilience and positivity continue to endear him to fans, and his ability to stay lighthearted through challenging times has only amplified his legendary status. Reflecting on his extraordinary career, Van Dyke remains humble and deeply grateful for the life he has lived. In a June 2024 interview, he remarked with a sense of wonder, "To this day, I look back and I'm just astounded. What happened to me is very difficult to get my head around. I've ended up here, being remembered 50, 60 years later. It's wonderful, but I can't get my head around it." Despite his immense success, he expressed a simple wish to be remembered for making people laugh. "For 75 years, that's what I've done," he said, perfectly capturing his lifelong dedication to spreading joy. One of Van Dyke's most cherished projects remains Mary Poppins. In a November 2024 interview, he shared how deeply moved he was when he first heard the Sherman Brothers' music for the film. "I couldn't believe it. One tune after another, I wept. It was just the most beautiful thing." Van Dyke's emotional response to the music reflects his genuine love for the work and the lasting impact Mary Poppins had on him personally and professionally. Through it all, Dick Van Dyke's career has been defined by an unwavering commitment to laughter, resilience in the face of personal adversity, and a deep connection with his audience. Whether he's dancing with penguins, winning awards, or simply making fans smile, his legacy continues to shine brightly, reminding us all of the timeless power of humor and heart. Despite his monumental career, Dick Van Dyke's emotional connection to Mary Poppins remains as strong today as it was during the filming process. Reflecting on his time working on the film, he continues to speak fondly of the iconic role of Bert, the cheerful chimney sweep. He's candid about the challenges he faced, particularly in matching Julie Andrews' precision as a soprano. "She not only is a soprano, she sang just a hair on top of the note," Van Dyke explained. "I sang flat. That was tough trying to match her." But in a testament to her professionalism and kindness, he adds, "She was patient and professional." This moment of vulnerability highlights both Van Dyke's struggles with perfection and his deep respect for his co-star. Van Dyke's reflections, though insightful, reveal a side of him that may surprise many. He's not driven by ambition in the way one might expect from someone with his level of success. In a December 2023 interview, he confessed, "I'm pretty lazy, really. When I'm having fun, all right, but I'm a lazy person. I don't have a lot of drive. I've been very lucky." This admission contrasts sharply with his career, which has spanned decades and seen tremendous success. It suggests that for Van Dyke, his passion for performing was never about chasing fame or recognition, but rather about enjoying the art and the joy it brought him. This rare moment of self-reflection paints a picture of a man who, despite achieving more than most could dream of, remained grounded and humble, driven not by ambition, but by a simple love for what he does. Van Dyke's career was shaped more by the enjoyment he found in his craft than the drive to succeed. Yet his lasting legacy as one of the most beloved entertainers of all time speaks to the extraordinary power of passion over pursuit.